Today we are going to talk about subject pronouns and how they work in conjunction with the verb ser. Since we've already learned the verb ser, which means to be, and how to conjugate that verb, we are going to practice using subject pronouns along with that verb so that in the future we can use subject pronouns with all different types of verbs. So what is a verb? In English, a verb is an action word. Some examples are run, speak, climb, think, swim, study. Typically, we would say to run, to speak, to climb, to think, to swim, to study. The main form of a verb is called the infinitive, which is why I added that word to in front of it. As I said, to run, to speak, to climb, to think. The infinitive is the main form which has been unchanged. It has not been conjugated yet. So we don't know who is doing the action. We just know what the action is. The infinitive is like a piece of clay that you can mold to fit the subject that you are talking about. So let's take the infinitive to think, for example. I've also used to speak in this example here. And we can conjugate that. We can mold it to change it so that it fits the subject who is doing that action. For example, I think, you think, he or she thinks, we speak, you all speak, or they speak. Notice that you all is not considered to be proper English in most cases, but it is included in the Spanish language. As you saw in the last slide, we molded the infinitive to fit the subject. This action is called conjugating the verb. You will hear that term conjugate used with every single verb that we cover in Spanish. The subject pronouns are the words I, you, he, she, we, you all, and they. Of course, that's in English. Therefore, in Spanish, the subject pronouns are as follows. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, and ustedes. This is something that you will have to practice and learn and eventually memorize so that you can use these subject pronouns with any of the verbs. In Spanish, there are two subject pronouns that mean you. First, we have the informal. In Spanish, we say tú. This form is used to address a person that you know well, like a family member, a coworker, or a friend. When we have the you formal, which is pronounced usted in Spanish, this form is actually used to address a person that maybe you don't know very well. You're talking to an authority figure, such as a teacher or a principal, or for someone that you are meeting for the first time. Using the usted form is a way that shows respect. There is another subject pronoun called vosotros, which means you all. It is only used in the country of Spain, and it is used informally. So there are two ways to say you all in Spanish as well. First, we have ustedes, which is you all, formal and actually informal in all countries except for Spain. This is the main form that we will use and that is used throughout the world when you are saying you all. Vosotros is you all informally, and as I mentioned before, it is used only in Spain. Spanish is much more gender specific than English. Sometimes subject pronouns can change slightly to reflect the gender of the people that you are referencing. For example, we can use vosotros, which means you all, and because it ends in os, this is referring to a group of all males or a mixed group of males and females. But if you look at the second example, vosotras, this ends in as. This means you all for a group of all females. In Spanish, that's a pretty typical rule. If something ends in O or OS, it's referring to males or a mixed group of males and females. If the word ends in A or AS, it's referring to a group of all girls. The same rule applies to the subject pronouns ellos and nosotros. Can you think of how the rule would apply here? Nosotros means we, and this is referring to a group of all males or a group of mixed males and females. Nosotras means we for a group of all females. Again, the second example ends in AS, so we know it has to be a group of all females. Ellos means they for a group of all males or a group of mixed males and females, whereas ellas means they for a group of all females. So that common theme is that the AS ending is for all females. Often the subject pronouns are represented in the form of a box, which we will also see when it comes to verbs. We set it up in a box format. So this is how it should be set up. Please take a minute to look through this box, look at the columns, singular and plural, as well as the rows that are labeled first person, second person, and third person. This is showing the same information that we went over earlier. Before it was in list form, but now it's just showing it in a box form. Usually when we read this from left down to the right column. So the left column first, going down, then we start at the top of the right column and move down. So we would say yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Again, that is something that you will want to practice, read through many times, and eventually memorize. As a review, the verb ser is one of the most important verbs in Spanish. It means to be. Ser is the infinitive form of the verb, so let's conjugate this in English to start. I am, you are, he or she is, we are, you all are, they are. This should just be a review, so hopefully this is bringing back some of those memories that we have established from the beginning, very beginning of the course, when we learned to describe ourselves. In the box form, which I mentioned before, you will see in a box form. Any verb that you come across in Spanish, eventually you will see it in the box form. We have soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. And the verb ser is what is capitalized in that box. Next to it, we have the subject pronouns. Those are the words that are not in all caps. So we would have yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros or nosotras somos, vosotros, vosotras sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. Just as you memorize ser and the different conjugations of ser, you should also memorize the different subject pronouns and their placements in this box so that when we move on to conjugating regular AR verbs, you know their placements and can match them up easily. Please let me know if you have any questions and we will review this in class. Thank you.